If your hot tub is tripping the breaker right away, this is the video you gotta watch. So your hot tub is tripping the breaker and you just can't figure it out. First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the breaker is totally off. I know it's tripping the breaker. Most breakers will go halfway. Just make sure it's totally off. A lot of times it's halfway. Push it all the way off. So make sure it's off. There's really only two things that trip a breaker on a hot tub. It's going to be your element, or it's going to be the ozonator. But there's many. We're going to go through all of them anyway. But these are the most common ones. Because the BP, and if you have this style here of the element where you can plug it right in the board, this is the easiest to do. If you have a different style where you don't have this plug-in, if you have the brass strips on here, I have a tendency of doing those last just because it's a pain in the butt. Everything else is easy. You just have to unplug it, turn the breaker back on. But for this style here, if you have a plug-in one, just disconnect this. This is probably going to be the most common thing. Unplug that, make sure it's out of the way, not touch anything. Turn the breaker back on. If it stays on, change your element. If it trips, what you do is just plug that back in. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the ozonator. So if you're unsure where your ozonator is on here, look in the back of the door, schematics right there, and it's all there. Just follow along here. You go, okay, it's third one in. That's the ozonator. So third one in, 1, 2, 3. We're going to unplug that. Turn the breaker back on. Again, if it stays on, then it's your ozonator. But if it keeps on tripping, plug that back in. Go to pump 2. Unplug pump 2 if you have pump 2. Turn the breaker back on. Again, if it stays on, it's pump 2. If it trips, plug it back in. Now, the very last thing you want to do is you want to do pump 1. That's the last thing you want to do. So I'm going to unplug that. If you try the breaker and it still trips, put that back in. Make sure it's off. So at this point, it just keeps on tripping and tripping, tripping. Doesn't matter what we unplug. Now for the Balboa spa pack, it's not going to be the light. If you have a different type of spa pack, you might want to try the light. But for Balboa, low voltage, if we've unplugged everything and everything just keeps on tripping, what we're going to do is we're going to undo the leads from the house. So once you get that out, and you got to remember, like, don't look at, I set this up just for this video. So you don't use this type of wire, by the way. So what you do is you ret everything off before you turn the power back on. So make sure nothing's touching. If you have to tape them up, each one, tape them all up. You don't want any of these touching or anywhere. Even if you keep them in here and you pull them out, make sure they're coiled back, nothing's touching each other. To be out, just tape them off or moret them off. When you turn the power back on, if it trips, now this is rare, it does happen, but if it trips, it's going to be the GFI breaker or the breaker inside the house. I doubt that it's going to be the breaker inside the house. It's more likely going to be a fault in the GFI breaker. Now, if you've taken this out and the breaker stays on, you have to change the circuit board. It's going to be something else on the circuit board. You can always disconnect the circuit board and test all the relays, and we do have videos on that, and I'll link it down below in the description. If you have any questions on anything, please comment down below.